Today's Toy Spot, we are having a look at the NECA Toys Avengers Age of Ultron quarter scale Iron Man Mark 43. Delving back into the world of the 1/4 scale figures from the folks over at NECA, I wanted to have a look at the Mark 43 release from the Avengers Age of Ultron film. Not only does he stand quite tall, being a quarter scale, we also have light up areas, such as obviously the arc reactor, the hands, and the visor. Box-wise, well, Spot's got this a little bit, unfortunately, at a disadvantage because the bottom of the box is way down there. The top of the box is way up there. Obviously, getting it out of the packaging, it's going to shrink him down just a little bit, but not really all that much. When it comes to the back of the box, you've got a small read-up saying the eccentric billionaire inventor Tony Stark has been busy since his last repulsor-powered outing, converting his previous digs into central Manhattan to the state-of-the-art Avengers Tower. As well as designing high-tech upgrades for his various allies, Stark has become the Avengers' chief source of funding and equipment. Despite these duties, Stark still finds the time to suit up in his armor as the invincible Iron Man. To check out more from the folks over at NECA Toys, you can head over to www.necaonline.com. That being said, Spot's going to take himself a break and get this out of box, but when we come back, we can get a better look at the NECA Toys Avengers Age of Ultron, the quarter scale Mark 43. There's more heading your way, guys. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Now that we have this towering 1/4 scale Iron Man out of packaging, let's get a better look at the figure. But just before we do that, let's have a look at the accessories that come included. For your accessories, Iron Man Mark 43 comes with a series of interchangeable hands, actually 2 pairs of interchangeable hands. The hands are not that far different from one another. Obviously, the main one that they always will include is the angled up repulsor blast hands. The other hands on the other hand, see what I did there? The other hands are more kind of a grasping hand, as you can see, where the fingers are more bent, as well as the thumb. And they would be a straight plug, so as opposed to tilting up, they'll just tilt, or they'll be able to move up and down. I wish that they had some posability to the fingers themselves, as these are completely staction. But it's a small, very small gripe versus the impressive figure that we are looking at now. So the figure itself is simply gorgeous. I think NECA has done a great job on this. It's tall, obviously it's standing a lot taller than other standard figures. I mean, a 6-inch figure or a 6-scale figure will stand roughly around there. So I mean, the towering aspect of Iron Man, he's a lot taller than most collectibles. Let's have a look at his face. To accomplish this, Spot's got his camera way up top there to have a look at Iron Man's face, as well as his torso. The face, now that you can see a little closer on it, does have a little bit of damage to it. As you can see, there's a little bit of paint that's been added to the faceplate. The faceplate is not removable. It's not something that you can remove out. He's also got this scuffing, almost this dirtied gray dirt scuffed area on the shoulder sections there on both sides. Actually, this one side looks almost coming across more like dirt. The other side looks like it's coming across more like the metal's been scratched away. Now the arc reactor, as well as the visor, as well as the hands, but we'll look at the hands in a second, all do light up. Simply just spin the figure around, and there is a switch on the back for the torso area, and then there is a little tiny switch right at the top here to activate his light up eyes. There's also little plastic inserts. I've already taken the liberty of taking those out, but they would obstruct the battery power, so when you get this out of the packaging, luckily the batteries have not drained. So we'll go ahead and switch that on. We'll also switch on the visor, and that's what it looks like, completely lit up. The arc reactor kind of has more of a frosted overlay to it. which doesn't make it look, it doesn't have as much of a bright effect as the eyes, but the eyes have a piercing bright white light. I really like that. Couple that with the slightly changed deco to the Ironman Mark 43. He still has the tried and true red and gold, but it certainly has a more evolved, certainly an evolved design to it. Now to light up Iron Man's arms, they're going to be a little bit different because you're not going to see the light up aspect of it right away, but you're going to switch it on, and yeah, it's not really showing anything at all. Switch on the other arm, same idea, like that. It's not actually until you take the hands out and just want to pop these off the ball joint, being of course careful not to pull the plate off. And just want to wiggle, I'll just fold that up a little bit, wiggle that off and pop it off. And there's your light source right there. Let's find an appropriate hand, shall we? And we just want to attach that back on. It's a very, very broad plug, which is the one other, I suppose the one other thing I wish it wasn't the case. I wish it was a smaller plug, because I understand that there's electronics in there, but it does make things awfully difficult to get the hands in place. Once, however, you're managed to get the hands in place, the hands do, again, project a very bright light. It's about the brightness of the arc reactor. It's a little bit brighter because it's got a more sticking out bulb, but it's certainly not nearly as bright as the eyes themselves. That's probably how I'm going to have it displayed when I have it in my cabinet. And again, because it's 1/4 scale, it's going to be a bit of a snug fit. I might even end up having to put it on top of my glass case instead. Okay, so let's do some closer looks at the Mark 43. Let's start with its torso area, as we've already kind of looked at its head. A good level of detail, I have to admit, between the reds, the golds, some little protruding accents of silver. Everything comes across really nice, really clean as well. I thought there might have been a little paint scuff on the side, but actually that's the same sort of deco that they're adding to the shoulder area. The gold is also nice and clean. I love the little inner workings here of the torso section. Now, these aren't coiled. Like, for example, if you had the 6 scale release of this guy from, like, say, for example, Hot Toys had these as sectional coiled pieces. The NECA, on the other hand, is just all one piece. So you have Poseability in the upper torso, and then you've got Poseability on the lower half, but this section does not separate, coil out, extend in any way, but it still looks incredible. A couple of other notable details. We spin our figure around to the back, and he has flaps that fold open, revealing the endoskeleton or exoskeleton of the frame underneath. The frame has a little bit of a wash to it, as you can probably see as well. We move the shoulders up like that. You do see the silver, but there's not really much of a dark contrasting color to it. I wish there was maybe just a little bit of a darker, this color here, also just added to it, just so some of the little details could be brought out a little bit further. But other than that, looks really good. As for his legs, it's same idea, the red, the gold, and the silver. I find the knees are extremely stiff to bend. Now, this obviously only just recently getting this out of packaging. This will likely loosen up over time, but it is a little on the difficult side. Did find it at a couple of points, it did feel like there was resistance to it. I was worried about bending it. As well on the undersides of his feet. It's funny that it looks like they give him peg holes on the undersides of his feet, but he obviously doesn't come with any sort of display stand to speak of. But even giving the undersole of his boots a sculpt is a nice touch by NECA. When it comes to his posability, it is the following. His head does rotate, but likely due to the way everything's wired in there to light up the eyes. That's about as much movement as you get out of him. Equally so, about up and down. That's really about it. The shoulders, on the other hand, hinge out fairly easy. And luckily the shoulder pads are slightly on, not so much of a spring, but like a little bit of a hinge where it allows the forearms or the whole arm area to move out and slightly forward and back. Slightly being that you could probably move the arm to about there. Any further point after that, you're adding a lot of force against the shoulder pad could potentially pop it off. He does have what seems to be almost a ratcheted double hinge in the joint. He's got a hinge right at the forearm area, and he's got a hinge right at the bicep area. As well, he also has the rotation in the wrists, as it's just a singular peg, and then he's also got that hinge in the flap. Which, moving that, I can also tell you too, moving that, I do get a little worried. It just seemed like the hinge didn't want to go immediately, that when I was moving it, it did feel like it was going to snap off. As for the torso and waist, we've already kind of had a look at that. Ball joint in the torso, ball joint in the lower torso connecting itself to the waist. And finally, wrapping up the legs do hinge forward and back, and they do ratchet out as well. As we've already had a look at, he's got that double hinge in the knee, again very on the stiff side, and then he's got a ball joint in the foot, and there's that little flap right at the front there that allows the foot to move slightly a little bit more forward. It doesn't look like he has a secondary pivot or a little notch in the foot allowing the foot to bend. It looks like it is just one solid ball joint attaching a completed foot. There's no additional hinge there. Spot is very pleased with how the Mark 43 turned out. It's not perfect. There's a few little hiccups that I wish, like the leg posability was a little bit better where the legs could have moved forward and back. Obviously the main restricting component is the lower waist area. The flaps just don't move out, so the legs don't really have as much clearance as I wish that they could. But other than that, I'm really happy with how he turned out. NECA clearly shows collectors out there that you don't have to spend a lot to get a fantastic recreation of an Ironman suit. Obviously, you can go the route of a 6 scale figure release. This one's going to be a little bit taller. But the end result, though, is for a more affordable price, you can get your hands on a much taller Ironman that's painted just as well as something produced by Hot Toys. Poseability may not be as much. It may not have as much of the accessories, but it's still an equally compatible, or not equally compatible, but an equal piece that one looks just as good, if you ask me, as the other. NECA Toys, again, I don't get a lot of the 1/4 scale just because they're just simply too tall for my collection. But the Mark 43, I definitely had to add that to my collection because it just is a beautiful looking piece. The coloring is good. Articulation, again, could be a little bit better. The light up options are a nice touch. Again, it really competes very well, I think, with the other 6 scale figure releases of Iron Man here. If you guys are interested in picking this guy up for yourself, the best bet I could probably say is check out your local comic book stores. In fact, my local comic book store stocks a lot of these 1/4 scale figures, and maybe some of them you might pass on, but I really don't think you should pass on the Mark 43. He turned out really good. Today's toy spot, we were having a look at the NECA Toys Avengers Age of Ultron. This was the 1/4 scale Iron Man Mark 43. Stay tuned, guys. Spot's going to have more toy spots and other videos heading your way. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.